that fans see on the surface. And then there's the version operating quietly behind it. One is about basketball. The other is about power, attention, and money. Because right now, something unusual is happening inside the league. A system has formed where one player doesn't just impact the scoreboard. She shifts the value of everyone around her. And somehow, one role player figured out how to tap into that system perfectly. Not by scoring the most points. Not by winning MVPs. Not by demanding a bigger contract. But by doing something far more calculated. She positioned herself next to the most valuable spotlight in the league. And turned that into an entirely different kind of success. Most people watching didn't even notice it happening. But once you break it down, it starts to look less like coincidence. And more like a blueprint. And the uncomfortable part? It might change how the entire league operates moving forward. The easiest way to understand what's happening is to stop thinking about basketball for a second. Because this isn't just a sport anymore. It's an attention economy. Every highlight clip, every viral moment, every courtside reaction. All of it feeds into one thing, visibility. And in today's world, visibility is currency. Right now, no one generates more of that currency than Caitlin Clark. She doesn't just bring fans. She brings scale. Millions of eyes locked onto every move, every game, every interaction. Media coverage follows her. Sponsors follow her. Entire conversations revolve around her. And here's where it gets interesting. When that much attention is concentrated around one player, it doesn't stay contained. It spills over onto everyone nearby. Teammates get more screen time. Their names get mentioned more. Their moments get clipped, shared, and pushed into the algorithm. In other words, being close to that spotlight automatically increases your value, even if your role on the court doesn't change. But most players approach this the wrong way. They try to compete for the spotlight. Only a few realize it's much more powerful to align with it. And that's exactly where this story starts to shift. When Sophie Cunningham landed in Indiana, most people saw it as just another roster move. A role player joining a team built around a rising superstar. Nothing unusual. But what went unnoticed was how quickly she read the situation. She didn't come in trying to take over games. She didn't force herself into the spotlight or chase headlines. Instead, she did something much more calculated. She studied the environment. She understood that this wasn't a normal team. This was the center of attention in the entire league. Every game was being watched more closely. Every interaction had a chance to go viral. Every moment carried more weight than usual. And instead of competing against that, she leaned into it. She embraced her role completely. Played within the system. Stayed visible without forcing it. Let the game come to her instead of trying to control it. And that subtle decision made all the difference. Because while other players often lose value trying to prove they're the main character, she increased hers by becoming the perfect supporting piece. At first, it didn't look like anything special. But then one moment changed how everyone saw her. The shift didn't happen slowly. It happened in a moment. During a high-tension game, things started getting physical around Caitlin Clark. The defense wasn't just aggressive, it crossed that invisible line where it starts to feel personal. You could see it building. The contact. The frustration. The energy in the arena changing. And everyone watching, fans, media, even players, was waiting for a response. Because moments like that always reveal something. They show who steps forward, and who stays quiet. And that's when Sophie Cunningham made her move. No hesitation. No overthinking. She stepped directly into the situation and made it clear that if anyone was going to go at the face of the franchise, they wouldn't do it uncontested. It wasn't just about the physical response, it was what it represented. Loyalty. Protection. Alignment. And in a league where one player carries that much attention, defending her isn't just a team act. It's a statement. That moment didn't stay inside the arena. Within hours, clips started spreading everywhere. Social media picked it up. Fans replayed it from every angle. Discussions exploded across platforms. But what really mattered wasn't just the clip. It was the narrative that formed around it. She wasn't just another teammate anymore. She became the protector. And that identity stuck instantly. People started recognizing her name more, talking about her differently, watching her more closely. Because in a league driven by attention, being part of the story is everything. And just like that, she wasn't on the outside of the spotlight anymore. She was right inside it. Attention by itself doesn't mean much. A lot of players go viral for a moment, and then disappear just as fast. But what separates a quick spike from real leverage is what you do after people start paying attention. And this is where Sophie Cunningham played it perfectly. As her name started circulating more, her presence online grew with it. More followers, more engagement, more people paying attention every time she showed up. But instead of letting that momentum fade, she leaned into it. She stayed visible, stayed relevant, stayed connected to the same spotlight that created the surge in the first place. And that consistency started to compound. Because brands don't just look for talent anymore, they look for attention. They look for people who can hold an audience, not just perform in a game. And suddenly, she checked that box. Opportunities started opening up. Partnerships, appearances, deals that had nothing to do with points per game or box scores. At one point, she even secured a major collaboration tied to a global hospitality brand. Something usually reserved for top-tier stars, not role players. And that's when it became obvious. This wasn't about basketball anymore. This was about positioning. She had effectively turned proximity into profit, by staying close to the biggest name in the league and becoming part of that ongoing story. If you've been watching closely up to this point, you're probably starting to see the pattern too. And honestly, this is the kind of shift most people miss until it's already too late. So if you're into breaking down moves like this, it's worth sticking around for what comes next. Because what worked for one player is about to influence an entire league. What makes this situation so powerful is that it didn't stay isolated. The moment one player proves a new path works, others start paying attention. And right now, players across the league are watching what Sophie Cunningham just pulled off very closely. Because this changes the equation. For years, the formula was simple. Perform better, earn more. Stats led to recognition. Recognition led to contracts. But now, there's a second path. Visibility. And in some cases, that path is moving even faster than performance. Players are starting to realize that being in the right situation, next to the right star, in front of the right audience, can multiply their value without needing to dominate every game. So naturally, the mindset begins to shift. Free agents aren't just asking, where can I win? They're asking, where will I be seen? And that's where things start getting complicated. Because when too many players chase the same spotlight, it stops being an advantage and starts becoming competition in a completely different way. Now imagine dozens of players looking at one team, one environment, as the fastest way to grow their brand. That's exactly what's starting to happen around Indiana Fever. And while that might sound like a good problem to have, it's actually the beginning of a much bigger issue. At first glance, having more players want to join your team sounds like a luxury. But in reality, it creates one of the most difficult situations a front office can face. Because now, the Indiana Fever aren't just building a roster, they're managing an ecosystem. On one side, you have your core stars. Players like Caitlin Clark, whose value is already sky high and only getting bigger. Contracts, expectations, long-term planning. Everything revolves around keeping that foundation strong. But on the other side, you now have role players whose off-court value is rising fast. Not because they suddenly became superstars, but because they're attached to the spotlight. And that creates a tricky balance. If you underpay them, you risk losing players who've become important, not just on the court, but in the overall visibility of the team. If you overpay them, you damage your ability to build around your core stars. And the salary cap doesn't adjust for viral moments, follower counts, or brand deals. It stays fixed, which means every decision starts to feel like a trade-off. Keep the chemistry, or protect the future. And it gets worse, because other teams are watching this unfold carefully. Teams with more financial flexibility. Teams without the same pressure. Teams that can step in and offer a bigger deal without hesitation. If someone like Sophie Cunningham becomes available, they won't just see a role player. They'll see a ready-made audience. And that makes her far more valuable than what shows up on the stat sheet. So now, Indiana isn't just competing in basketball. They're competing in a market. A market where attention has real price tags, and where one wrong move could cost them more than just a player. What's happening here isn't just a one-off story. It's the beginning of a shift. Because for the first time, the league is seeing clear proof that value isn't only created through performance anymore. It's created through positioning, through visibility, through alignment, through being part of something bigger than just your individual role. And Sophie Cunningham didn't just benefit from that shift. She revealed it. Now every player entering the league, or approaching free agency, is going to think a little differently. Not just about how they play, but where they play, who they play next to, and how often they're seen. And once that mindset spreads, there's no going back. Because when attention becomes currency, the entire game changes. Teams will have to think beyond talent. Players will have to balance ego with strategy. And the line between athlete and brand will get thinner than ever. The real question is this evolution making the league smarter? Or is it quietly turning it into something else entirely? If you've made it this far, you already see what most people are missing. So let me know what you think. Does this new attention economy make the game better? Or does it create more problems than it solves? And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we go beyond the surface and really unpack what's happening behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe and stay locked in.